Okay, so we're going to go through the notes on roles and energy transfer. And as we're going through this, just make sure that you're filling in the note sheet that is associated with it. When you're done with the note sheet, you need to submit it. It is due at the end of class today, so please make sure that it gets completed and submitted. Okay, so through our unit, or this first part of our unit, we're going to attempt to answer these questions about how organisms get and transfer energy. We're going to talk about food webs and food chains. And today, a lot of the stuff we're going to go through is just review, and then we're going to be applying it tomorrow to the activity we're going to do. So we're going to first talk about producers. Remember that producers are organisms that are going to make their own energy through the process of photosynthesis. The more grown-up term for a producer is an autotroph. So you're going to hear the term autotroph. Auto meaning self and troph meaning energy. So again, these are organisms that make their own energy. The glucose is broken down to make that chemical energy, or ATP. And we know that ATP is what we use to make our bodies go, and all organisms their bodies use it. And then you can see a couple examples there. Remember that these supply the energy for all organisms. They're the things that all organisms get their energy from. They're the only organisms that can take the sun's light and make energy. The next one is decomposers. So decomposers are not consumers. Some people confuse them and think, oh, they're just a specialized type of consumer, and they're actually not. Decomposers don't really eat organisms, they more break it down. So the key word here is breaking down. They get energy by breaking down the remains of other organisms. Some examples are fungi and bacteria. The purpose of a decomposer is to move materials that are otherwise unwanted back into the soil to make them available for other organisms. So breaking down those waste products or leftover like hair or teeth, things that animals aren't going to eat, to put it back into the soil so other organisms can use it. The most diverse type of organism is a consumer. So there are three main types, although I kind of break it down into four. Remember that consumers are going to eat other organisms. We call them heterotrophs, hetero meaning different and troph meaning energy. So these are organisms that get their energy from a different source, meaning they have to eat something. The three main types are herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, but I also throw in scavengers as a specialized type just so that we understand the difference between a scavenger and a decomposer. So an herbivore eats only plants, a carnivore is going to eat only meat, and an omnivore could eat both. Typically, omnivores will prefer one thing over another. That might just be based on availability of food, or just their taste in general. Technically, dogs and cats are omnivores, but they usually prefer to eat a more meat-based meal. That's what their dog food and cat food is made up of, but they can eat plant materials too. Scavengers are a special type of consumer that feed on dead organisms. A turkey vulture, a hyena, these are all examples of scavengers. They're going to basically follow around consumers, and specifically carnivores, and they're going to eat whatever they leave behind. Hyenas, for example, will follow around a pride of lions or lionesses, and when they're done eating, they'll go in and eat what's left, and then whatever they leave behind, that's what the decomposers are then going to break down. So again, scavengers and decomposers are not the same thing. The next part of this review notes is food chains and food webs. So food chains shows us how energy is transferred among organisms. So a food chain is just a path of energy transfer from producer to consumer. The energy moves in one direction and the arrows show the flow of energy. So the corn's energy is being transferred to the locust or grasshopper. The grasshopper's energy is transferred to the lizard. The lizard's energy is transferred to the snake. The arrows do not show what eats what. So you can't look at this and say, oh, well, the corn is eating the grasshopper. Number one, that doesn't make sense. And number two, that's not what the arrow means. It's talking about the flow of energy. So the corn's energy transfers to the grasshopper when the grasshopper eats the corn.